Hey guys, welcome back. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you're staying hydrated, drinking lots of water, have eaten something at some point today. If you haven't, now's your chance to. We're sitting back, relaxing, and doing our final reading of Stolen Tongues. We are almost done. We are 94% of the way through, so we actually might be ending stream a little bit early today, but that's okay because we're streaming again tonight. I'll talk about that in a second, but this is our last time reading Stolen Tongues. The book will be finished. So, um, for those of you who are new here or aren't caught up on VODs, I highly suggest going to my YouTube channel under the same name and clicking on the book readings playlist, where you'll find all the previous VODs of me reading Stolen Tongues in order. Or you're still welcome to sit here and chill and just listen. It's a vibe. It's a good time. Um, yeah. Um, so tonight I will be back sometime between 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard because I am joining a new Minecraft server. It is not just any Minecraft server. It is called, I believe, Little Creatures Craft SMP, which is so cute. It is an ultimate Origin server essentially, and I'm really excited to join it. I'm really excited for the Origin I picked, and if you want to know what one I picked, you should tune in for my very first time on the server tonight. So keep an eye out on Twitter, keep an eye out um, on Twitch for when I go live for that, but that will be happening soon. And that being said, every single Sunday and Wednesday from now on, I will be streaming on that server for the foreseeable future. And yeah, so those will be my 2 Minecraft days. I'll eventually get back to the scary stories. I love doing it, but something new to do, and I don't know where else to fit it in my schedule, and I really want to play at least twice a week on stream. So, that being said, we are going to get right into our final reading of Stolen Tongues. So, here we go. It was Sunday. Oh, actually, one more thing, as always, I will be pausing in between each page to read any chats that go through. I love hearing your thoughts. Anything that you want to say, feel free to type them. But I do not want to take you too far out of the story, and that's why I'm pausing between pages. It was Sunday. Angela arrived at our home just before nightfall, immediately hugging Faye and demanding to know what was going on. She looked deeply unsettled, and I wondered if she knew about Tue's and Nathan's deaths. In that moment, I remembered what Nathan had told me on Pale Peak. We don't speak the names of the dead for some time, and I decided to avoid the subject altogether unless Angela brought it up. Her green eyes reminded me of his. It only stuck with me then that she might have been his mother. I took Faye's drawings outside and scattered them around the yard on Faye's instruction. She had sketched more pictures of her own nightmares and of memories of from when she was little. She had even drawn a man that looked like Christopher, or at least how she imagined he might look had he survived and grown up. Many of the pages contain annotations, and some even had stories from Faye's childhood. At our front door, I placed my favorite of the bunch, a portrait of a 5-year-old Faye holding a baby. The sky darkened. Back inside, Faye dimmed the lights and lay under a blanket on the couch. She had the remarkable ability to nap at any time of the day. It was even more prepared to fall asleep quickly due to our recent all-nighter. She refused Nathan's tea this time and instead told me, "Wake me up when he gets here." In under a half hour, she was out cold, leaving Angela and me to discuss the situation at the dining room table. I explained my hypothesis on Faye's grief. She buried that pain so deep that she didn't even dream of it, I said. She totally erased Christopher from existence. I don't get how. It makes sense, Angela replied, keeping her voice low. Extreme denial might force something way down inside, but there's more than one way for it to get out. Do you believe us? I asked. Do you believe her? We looked to the couch. Faye's chest rose and fell rhythmically. Her face looked serene. I believe something remarkable is happening here, Angela offered. He's real, I said. I've seen him. I've touched him. He did this. I pulled down my collar, revealing the scars on my chest. Well, she said after a moment, I'm here, aren't I? What are you doing? Faye blurted out. You need help with that? Angela and I listened intently, but after a few more strings of babble, I realized that Faye was dreaming about her coworkers. An hour passed. I could tell that Angela was beginning to regret making the drive. Maybe we need to take a more direct approach, she said. Like what? She talks to him, right? Yes. Well, Angela said, moving to the kitchen window and peering outside. What makes you think he always comes to her? Maybe she calls out to him. I did not have time to finish the thought, so I will just be lurking. That is totally fine. Welcome, welcome. I opened my mouth to protest the ridiculous idea, but then a memory disrupted my thoughts. It was a familiar song, it ringing so clearly in my mind that I thought I was actually hearing it. I approached Faye and began to hum the dreary elegy that we had heard from the mouth of the child outside the cabin. Sol mi adieu, sol mi adieu. Faye's eyes darted around behind her eyelids. She rocked her head back and forth a few times. Her arms jerked. Angela's voice rose behind me, carrying the same tune. Faye grit her teeth, then began to mouth the words we sang. Her breathing grew louder and faster, and a timid humming escaped her lips, joining us in chorus. Suddenly, Faye jolted upright, the sudden movement silencing me and Angela. A few seconds ticked by, and then she fell backward onto the couch, twitching periodically. She's fighting it, Angela said, kneeling beside her. Faye? I asked. Are you all right? Yes, she muttered. Do you know where you are? Angela asked. I'm with you. Faye's breathing settled into a slow and shallow rhythm. I knew it well. I'd heard it every night for the past several years. She was dead to the world. Angela looked to the windows, then to the darkened staircase. I followed her gaze, suddenly very aware of the shadows that swallowed up most of the house. Who are you with, Faye? She asked. Do you know? Felix, Angela, Erica. Her voice barely penetrated the air in front of her, forcing us to lean in close. Who's Erica? Angela whispered to me. Her boss, I replied. Sweetie, Angela said, touching Faye's hand. Erica isn't here. Is there someone else here? Faye looked puzzled for a moment and rolled her head around, taking in the space around her like a satellite. No, she replied. What about the one who follows you? Angela pressed. The one who calls out in the night, is he here? No. Where is he now? Angela asked. Faye's head craned from side to side as if she were emptying water from her ears. Across the dark. We need you to call out to him, I said. No, she replied. Bring him here, Angela said, squeezing Faye's hand, and I promise we'll protect you. Faye whimpered. The more we prodded, the more resistant she became. She started to cry, at first in her own voice, and then in the voice of a small child. Please no, she begged. The sounds that came out of her mouth should have come from a 5-year-old girl. Angela looked up at me wide-eyed. Goosebumps rippled down my arms. Sol mi adieu, Faye sang. Oh, Amaneta, sol mi adieu. Suddenly Faye's body stiffened and her eyes rolled forward. They landed squarely on me, then looked over my shoulder and focused on something 1,000 miles behind me. Her mouth opened slightly and a gurgling sound came up from her throat. She spoke in a wet and guttural voice. Watch you. Watch you. Faye leapt off the couch and shuddered as though she was trying to throw something from her back. Her body remained rigid, and she turned to face away from us. Every joint in her limbs popped and cracked in sickening symphony. She bent her head back and stared up at the place where the ceiling met the wall in front of her, balling her fists so tight her knuckles crackled like twigs. She snarled again, watch you, watch you, watch you. Angela jumped to her feet, ready to stop Faye from hurting herself or dashing off into the night. I played safety a few feet away, knowing how quick she could move in this state. Tell us where he is, Faye, Angela commanded. Faye put her finger to her lips and shushed us. She placed her fingers against the wall like she was feeling for a pulse. She breathed hard through the gritted teeth and forced out the word, bedroom. I looked over my shoulder at the stairwell. I couldn't see anything, but somehow the darkness up there felt full, like it concealed 1,000 terrible eyes peering back at me. Is he talking to you right now? Angela asked. Faye grunted, trying to resist the force that contorted her body. His mouth is always moving, she whispered, but I can't hear him. He's facing the other way. I went upstairs, wading through the darkness of the hallway. Terror pushed back against me as I advanced. I could feel him now. As my hand touched the bedroom doorknob, I heard a window open on the other side. The bedroom was empty, disturbed only by the cool night air that wafted in from the window near Faye's side of the bed. The dim glow of the backyard's automatic lights poured in. I approached and looked outside. At the far end of the yard, just beyond the reach of the lights, stood a huge figure. The shadows smoldered around him, but his size betrayed him and outlined his wretched body against the blackness. He looked taller than ever before and faced away, staring up into the trees that lined the property. His arms lay pressed against his sides and his fists were balled, tightly clutching pieces of paper, Faye's drawings. Wol my, he growled. I locked the window and raced back downstairs. Faye was now sitting on the couch, head still craned up toward the ceiling, Angela rubbing her back and whispering to her. Outside a voice howled. It sounded like a little girl crying out for her mother. Another voice erupted, Lynn's, shouting, Greg, we need to take her to the hospital. Sorry, needed to clear my throat. Faye began to convulse. Angela wrapped her hand around Faye's forehead and whispered into her ear, but I couldn't hear what she said. An infant shrieked in the backyard and then slowly moved down the side of the house to the front door. There was a loud, slow knock, followed by more voices. The knock repeated again and again and again, and Becca's voice called out, Faye, where are you? Help me, please help. Angela shouted something I could not understand. At last, Faye sucked in a huge breath and leaned back on the couch. Her head returned to a normal position, and she frantically gasped for air. The pounding on the door grew louder, and the voices began to overlap, as though several people were standing in the front of our house, crying out in the dark. He's here, Faye stammered, clutching herself with shaking hands. Her eyes shrieked louder than a scream ever could. A man's sobs filtered through the door from outside. Greg's voice bellowed. He was my son, too. My son. Did you think a weekend in the goddamn mountains would make us forget? Faye covered her ears, trying to block out the wicked lures that snared her. The words were so clear that I nearly believed Greg stood on our doorstep. Don't you fucking dare, Lynn's voice cried out. Just let her forget. This doesn't have to be her burden, too. Faye burst into tears and wobbled to the door. I followed just behind, ready to block her from opening it. The wails of a baby echoed through the house, followed by a little girl saying, It's Faye. Faye. What's yours? I can't see you. Faye crumpled to the ground. She leaned her back against the door and brushed a handful of tear-soaked curls out of her face. There came another knock. My own voice followed it, saying, May I come in? It's freezing out here. Looks like another storm's coming. Faye looked up at me, our gazes locked, and time slowed to a drip. I saw an abyss of terror and uncertainty in her eyes, mirroring my own state. But then a look of conviction fell over her face. The fear seemed to dissipate from it. I have to tell you something, she said, gently knocking on the door. Her eyes never left mine. I know what you really want. The voices fell silent all at once, and only an uneven wheezing remained. I had a baby brother, she said. His name is Christopher. He was number 5. The breathing cut out. Faye knocked on the door again. After a minute, something knocked back. I remember now, she continued. I couldn't remember for years, or I guess I just didn't want to. It's easier for me to just pretend it never happened. Some kids make things exist, friends, monsters, places. But I made Christopher not exist. That way I didn't have to lose him. And eventually, so was he. Oh, sorry. His death was just make-believe, and eventually, so was he. A long, slow scratching noise crisscrossed the door. The thing outside was dragging a claw over the wood, drawing symbols or pictures. Faye put her palm on the door, feeling the weak vibrations of the scratching. For a long time, she said. That number was all I could remember. I knew it meant something more, but every time I thought about it, my whole body hurt. I'd feel sick, and then I'd just fall asleep. Or, if I was dreaming, I'd just wake up. I always knew it meant something more, but I wanted to forget. The doorknob rattled, and a wet, clunking sound emitted from it. The imposter was gnawing on it from the other side. The clatter of 100 jagged teeth rose in vile symphony throughout our living room. He was stillborn, Faye said. Do you know what that means? He died inside my mom. All this time I've avoided burying Christopher. I couldn't imagine him going into the ground, down in a hole where he'd never see the sun. But you finally helped me realize why it's time I laid him to rest. Faye, come hold him, Becca's voice called from outside. I don't get it. He falls asleep so fast when you've got him. You want her to be your new mommy, Caleb? The scratching noises persisted. Faye wiped tears out of her eyes and took a deep breath. Now you know everything. I wanted you to know. And now you can leave. And I'm not going with you. A chorus of voices rang out in the night. An infant screamed, a toddler laughed. Greg and Lynn and Becca and Taway and Nathan and the ranger all spoke at once. Decades of pain washed through the door. Words of anguish and sorrowful cries drowned out the world. Angela and I exchanged horrified glances, but Faye remained motionless at the door, staring up into my eyes. She didn't blink. The knocking on the door swelled to a violent pounding. The entity used every possible trick he could. He tried to hit her right where the wounds were fresh, tried to tear open the oldest scars, but Faye never budged. She held her ground and never took her eyes off me. They were filled with a knowing calm, as if to say, enough. When the imposter got no response, he stomped from the front door to the nearby window. Angela shut off the light so she could see his silhouette in the curtain. Will my, he bayed, rolling his nails across the glass. Faye's lips quivered, but she said nothing. A titanic scream erupted from the creature, and he slapped the side of the house with an open hand. The sound shook the room and struck a lightning bolt of terror in the pit of my stomach, but Faye did not react. She didn't even flinch. Then the entity said something I did not expect. Instead of assuming the voice of someone we knew, he spoke in several I did not recognize. He uttered only one labored sentence, but each word was formed with a different tongue. I walked 1,000 years across the dark to find you. The message petrified me. The finality, the sheer longing of it seemed incomprehensible, but Faye just shook her head. Go, she said. The creature howled. His shadow receded from the window, coloring Faye's body silver with a dim kiss of moonlight. Sullen footsteps lurched across our yard and vanished into a backdrop of cricket songs. Angela and I looked down at Faye. A relieved smile spread across her face. She wasn't crying anymore. Epilogue. Faye has finally laid her demons to rest. Several days have passed since she made her confession to the imposter, and he appears to have given up on his sinister quest. He returned only once since that night, merely to sing his morose lullaby. Faye slept right through it. I didn't mention it to her. A dreadful weight has been lifted from her shoulders, allowing her to mourn properly. At night, she sleeps soundly. During the day, she cries. She cuddles with me and talks about her childhood. She has long walks with her parents and sister. They cry too. I have shed many tears with her and for her loss, but now I finally understand why she did what she did. As a child, Faye repressed the pain of her brother's death so completely that Christopher himself disappeared with it. The number 5 became the lockbox in which he was hidden. The coffin she buried him in, and she buried him so deep that she couldn't even dream of him anymore. That is why the imposter never fully understood what she was hiding. He learned his prey through their dreams. I believe that Faye's lifelong sleep disturbances were her brain's attempts at keeping that pain repressed. But by talking in her sleep, Faye invited the dark attention to herself. I suppose that if you speak long enough into the void, someone is bound to start listening. Someone or something heard her pain and saw it as a weakness. He saw those cracks in her heart as a passage into her soul, and so he chose her. The imposter became transfixed with Faye, not because she was an easy target, but because she was monolithic challenge, a worthy opponent. But Faye's brain is not just a factory of denial, it is also a work of art. She is able to see the world in ways that I cannot, and her vision granted her insight into the monster. Faye realized that the imposter could tug on her puppet strings by invading the darkest parts of her mind. In all those hidden places, he found weapons to use against her, to wear her down. But instead of burying her secrets deeper, Faye unearthed them and brought them into the light. By moving Christopher out from the depths of her subconscious and into her waking thoughts, she unleashed a tidal wave of anguish upon herself. But at the same time, she took away the imposter's powers over her. She cut off her own puppet strings, and now there was nothing left for the creature to grab onto. And so he left. This catastrophe has taught me what it means to grieve. I found the time to mourn for my dear friends, Taway and Nathan. Their deaths are terrible wounds on my heart, and I will always bear the agony of their loss. But I want it to hurt, as a permanent reminder. They gave me so much, and asked nothing in return, spare that I preserve the goodness of their people in my memory. By writing about their altruism and sacrifices, I am trying to fulfill that promise. May their spirits live on in the sacred land they protect. Angela and I have spoken a few times since that night, mostly about the dream catchers, but the conversations go nowhere. We may never know for sure who built them. Perhaps they were crafted by the people who live on Pale Peak. Perhaps they wanted to protect fools like me, who venture into that mountain without understanding its history. Maybe they were creations of the imposter himself. Or maybe they had nothing to do with us. We have also discussed the engagement ring, what the imposter wanted with it, and what it enabled him to do to Faye remains a mystery. Once the creature had possession of it, he slowly gained Faye's trust and the ability to influence her, even while she was awake. After I retrieved the ring, he ceased visiting her for several weeks, and could only possess her through dreams. Angela has advised us to get rid of it for fear that it could be cursed, but to Faye, that ring symbolizes everything we've been through, and she refuses to part with it, such a meaningful thing. It still rests on her finger, and glitters like her smile. There's a terrible being that still lives up there in those woods on Pale Peak. Some people believe him to be an old evil, a progenitor of the bad spirits that wander the Southwest and the Rocky Mountains. Others call him a soul trader, a demon who takes his victims out to the endless dark to feast on their suffering. Taway and Nathan thought of him as an apex predator with a remarkably effective hunting style. But when I think of the imposter, I can't help but think of another animal, Carrot. The imposter reminded me of a parrot, always watching, always imitating, always practicing. And just like Carrot, he could only ever approximate the people he watched. He could never fully become one of them. But whatever the imposter truly is, I have stopped trying to understand. Faye and I plan to head back to Colorado in a few weeks to reconcile with her parents. I will return to the mountain alone to pay my respects to Taway and Nathan's community and to witness the bulldozing of the cabin. In distinct days, I may regret not investigating it further. I may wonder, I may dream. I don't know if it is better that we should remember or forget. But I know that we have an obligation to help protect future visitors to the mountain. Whatever secrets that cabin on Pale Peak still hides, let them be buried deep beneath the rubble and the snows of decades to come. That is the end of the book. That is the end of Stolen Tongues, everybody. So I want to give you a fun fact. Pale Peak, I don't think is a real mountain, but Pikes Peak is in Colorado. I'm wondering if it's based off that mountain. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this book. I know today is a shorter stream. Like I said, I will be back later for a Minecraft stream. But that is the end of Stolen Tongues. I'm really happy that you guys have been enjoying this book. I think it's a phenomenal one. I highly recommend you go purchase it for yourself or download it on your Kindle. I mean, I have the Amazon Kindle app. It's free on there, so as long as you have Prime. So highly recommend having a copy for yourself. Like, I own it and I wanted to read it again, you know. It's that good. But yeah, this was definitely a really fun journey. I really enjoy reading scary stories on this. I will be going back to, like I said, scary stories will be stopping for a while I start doing the LCC SMP for a while, because I want to get into that and make progress on that on stream. I want to show all my progress on stream. I don't want to play on my own and show up on stream one day and be like, hey, I did this. No, I want to show you guys the whole process, which is why I'm going to be streaming that twice a week now, in place of anything I do on Sundays and in place of scary stories on Wednesdays. But when that starts to relax a little bit, I'll get back to reading scary stories, because I love that. Horror stories are a part of who I am. I love scary things, creepy things, horror movies. It's just my type of thing, right up my alley. So I think that's all for now. So I will see you guys in a couple hours, between 8 and 9, somewhere in there. I'll be getting on and streaming the new Origins SMP that I am a part of. So I really hope you tune in for that. It's going to be really fun. I am a cool Origin. I'm really excited to share it. I got some cool powers going for me. So tune in if you want to find out what Origin I am, and watch me begin on the SMP. So yeah. And I will be streaming tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with some more counter side. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. I'll see you very soon. I don't think there's any friends streaming right now, but we will see if there's anyone streaming to raid anyway. But if you're watching on YouTube and you enjoyed, please consider subscribing. It takes 2 seconds and it's completely free, so you can always unsubscribe later. I hope the new mic sounds good as well. It seems to sound good. I love it. I'm in love with it. I think it's going to be a really great asset to this channel. And no friends are streaming right now, so we are just going to end. So have a great afternoon, guys. I will see you soon. Bye.